What up, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Finster, Princess, SoundCloud, SoundClick, Aquarius, and All Points America. All Points white people. It's just going to be something I was just thinking about. So some of y'all listen to some of it, but most people won't even listen to all of it. But we'll just see how much y'all understand any of it. Okay. There's an epidemic, actually it's pandemic, of white people and the decline of the white race. And if you haven't been living under a rock, you would know this. Now, I work in different stores. The company I work for send me to different food stores to do demonstrations in those stores. And this week, I'm up at a store that's predominantly white. Out of every 10 people, out of every 30 people, there's one black person you'll see. And it might be even, the numbers might be even more widespread than that. It might be like 40. I think it's close to 40. You'll see one black person. One. Yeah, it's close to 40. About every 40 people, one. So, now these people all have money. They all have good jobs. This is an affluent middle America. I guess it's middle of America. So affluent would mean millionaires. There are some who live in this area. And as a matter of fact, one of the dudes, he's on TV. He walked past me today. I don't want to say his name. But I was like, I know you. And he was like, I'm so-and-so. I was like, hey, man, okay, I see you on TV. So those type of white people live in this place I'm talking about. Nonetheless, while I am doing my demonstrations, I watch these people. And I noticed something, because I don't live in this area. I live southwest of that area. And I noticed something about them. I noticed that the majority of their families have either one or two children. And every now and then, you'll see one of them come by with 3 or more. And the most is 4. Now, when I was growing up, for a mother and father to have only 1 or 2 children was not that common. When we were growing up, there was more like 6, 8. My cousins, they had 10, just one family. Same mother and father, 10. There's 6 of us in our family. But my brothers and sisters are not all the same. My 2 younger sisters, they have the same mother and father. As we're progressing, you know, families are getting smaller. However, there are still black families who are having, you know, 5, 6, 7 kids, and those families are not exactly, you know, as rich or have as much money or resources as these families that I'm talking about. But nonetheless, they're having a lot more children. So let's go back in history, because I'm going to bring this all together. If you can just stay with me for a minute. Let's go, let's stay present day for a minute. Stay present day for a minute. The jail system. The jail system that we have in California alone, they built 22 jails. They built 22 jails. They built 1 new university. You're expected to go to jail in California. But this is not just in California, because jails are privatized now. There used to be a lot of state jails, but jails are privatized now. So being that there's private jails, what are they doing? They're arresting people and they're putting them in jail so they can get the subsidiaries from the government. And like I said, if you haven't been living under a rock, you know this, because they are putting so many African Americans in jail. And once you do this and you get anywhere near the jail system, even if you go for a misdemeanor, what that does, it's all cyclical. What it does is it enables you to get a good paying job. Like directly, I go to college, I get a good paying job. That's not the route for us, because it automatically disenfranchises you, because that's going to come up on your record, and that employer is going to pick somebody else over you because you have a record, even if it's disorderly conduct. Especially if you don't get expunged, and some of those records cannot get expunged because they're on your BCI record. Let's just say that you fought back. You fought a cop back who was trying to take you in. You fought him back. They're going to over-indict you. They're going to say you were resisting arrest. They're going to say you struck an officer. They're going to bring up like 10, 20 charges, and about 5 of them are going to stick. You'll probably do, 6 months to a year, 3 years in jail if you're not dead. You might do 2, 3 years in jail, and then when you get out, you're like, I'm going to clean up my act, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to yada, yada, yada. But they're going to see that on your record, and it's a violent crime, which means it can't get erased from your record. It's going to stay on your BCI record, which means some jobs you can't get. Now, those jobs, meaning you cannot get a job with the state. You're not going to get a federal job. Out. You're not going to get jobs with people like with Children's Services or like Children's Hospital. You can forget that. You're not going to get, any hospital job, PNC, Children's Hospital, you're not getting in there. Because Children's Hospital is owned by Nationwide. You're not getting in the Nationwide. You're not getting in there. You're not going to get in some factories. You're not going to get in there because they're ran and owned by some governments, or they're ran and owned by some people who are the private sector, and those private sector don't want your type of people in there. Now, mind you, there are white people going through this too, but the majority of this is happening to black people. There are millions and millions and millions of us going to jail immediately. And now they're arresting us in high school. We never thought about getting arrested in high school when I was growing up. Now they're shooting us at 12 years old. They tried this kid for murder and put him in an adult jail. He was 12. They shot Tamir Rice dead. They just killed him. 2 seconds, he was shot dead for doing what boys do, which is playing with a BB gun. We played with BB guns when we were kids. BB guns, pellet guns, that's what we did. That's what you do as a boy. They play with real guns as children. Go on up there in Michigan and see if you won't see a child firing a gun. They learn how to fire guns real quick. As a matter of fact, back in the day, they had to, because the child had to learn how to hunt. But Tamir Rice got shot 2 seconds after that cop pulled up. So if they don't kill you, they're putting you in jail, and they need you to be in jail because you're generating income from this. But here's the bad thing about that, and I'm going to go back in history in a minute, and stay with me, please. But here's the bad thing about that. What they are also doing is they're creating a standing army. They put you in jail. They feed you. They house you. They clothe you. They give you medicine. And in some federal penitentiaries, you can lift weights. So instead of being out here on the street, of course, you can't procreate. That's the one thing that they're stopping. They're stopping the act of procreation, because you can't procreate when you're in jail. Not usually. What they're trying to do is they're trying to stop the bloodline. It's an undercoated effort of what they're doing. They need the money from you, yes, but they're also trying to stop the bloodline. Let's go back in history. Here's what white people did, and I'm saying white people on purpose. The Persians tried this too, but it didn't go as good for them. Because once they ran into the Mediterranean Sea, they got beat back. But here's what white people have done, mainly the British. The French, and the Spanish. Here's what they did. The Spanish did the whole Spanish Inquisition, but they also went into Africa. And when they went in the Spanish Inquisition, they killed 87 million people, Aztecs and Indians. The Mexican people were almost wiped out. This is a fact. And they killed them in the most brutal ways, and then they tortured them. The English, what they did was they went into Africa. And they took 20 million people from there and they brought them over to their New America after they ran from the Queen and they had their little war with the Queen. Then they came over here. But when they got here, before the Africans came over here, they killed the Indians. Because the Indians are the original Americans. You're not American. The Indians are Americans. They were here first. This is their land. We just, I didn't take it, but the white people just took it. Black people had nothing to do with it. The Indians never had a war with black people. Neither did the Asians. Asians didn't war against us. We didn't have a war. But you see where I'm going? People from Belgium, they did the same thing. They went to Africa and they took every country in Africa has been taken over by somebody white. As a matter of fact, they said, why don't we just divide it up amongst ourselves? As if nobody lived there. Millions and millions of Africans taken off the Ivory Coast, and that's just the Ivory Coast alone. But millions and millions upon millions of Africans died because white people invaded and took their land. But here's what they did. For one, Africa is the largest continent there is. Here's what they did. For one, they left diseases over there to try to kill us off. Again, trying to stop the bloodline. And they tried that. And it worked for a while. But nature has a way of curing itself. So there's still an epidemic over there, and there's still an epidemic as far as AIDS and other diseases. But nonetheless, what they also did was, people from Belgium, what they also did was they went over there and told the Tutsis and the Hutus that they were two different people. And they said the difference is your noses. These are the people who run De Beers, the people who own the diamond company, who tell you that when you want to get married, go out there and put yourself $20,000 into debt and buy this woman a goofy ring that means nothing. That's who those people are. They went over to those diamond mines and they caused a war in those diamond mines. And now those wars still going on. Those people still hate each other because of a lie that was told by the Dutch. Once again, trying to stop the bloodline. When a white person and a black person mix together, what does a baby come out to be? That baby comes out to be black. It's a dominant trait. That's it. That baby is no longer white. No longer white by appearance, and no longer white according to America. See, what America thought they were doing, they thought they were smart if they said, hey, if you have any baby that looks black, then that baby's black, which was a way of trying to discount you or, stop you from advancing in life, so on and so forth. But what they didn't consider is eventually there would be so many of us that we would start mixing with other races, whether it be white, whether it be Asian, so on and so forth. And we start mixing with those races, and then those babies would all be black. Those babies, they call them Blasian if they're Asian. No, they're black. Those children are black. They're classified as black according to Congress. This is according to Congress. They're classified as black. If I mix with a white woman and we have a child, that child is black. Do you see what's going on here? Over in Europe today, they're telling people to have children. They're telling people to have children. Over in the same thing is going on in Britain. As a matter of fact, they're paying people in Europe today to have children. If you have one child, have another one. They're paying you to have children in Europe if you're white. Why? Because all through history, what white people did was they went into Spain, they caused a war. A lot of white people died in that war, but mostly, they won that war. Nonetheless, they even tried to sail over to, the Queen of England. They tried to sail over to England, and Spain tried to take over England. That didn't work. But nonetheless, them still fighting with each other, them fighting against Spain. All the time, we're not fighting against none of these nations. We start fighting against them when the Moors start fighting against the Christians. But nonetheless, Africa being a very large continent is the largest continent. So think about that. So there's millions and millions of us still breeding, but there are millions and millions of them dying. Why? Because of conquest. Vietnam War, how many died in that war? When the Germans started World War I, how many white people died in that war? They didn't even want the colored troops in the war. And while they didn't want us in the war and they treated us bad and treated us like we couldn't do anything, as a matter of fact, we were better shots than them because our eyesight is better. And that's also a fact. I was in the army. But nonetheless, during these wars, all these wars that you're having, when the Germans came over, the Germans tried to take over the whole world. What does that mean? You have to fight on many fronts. And they were stopped. Conquest. Even Napoleon tried to take over the world at one time when he claimed that he was emperor. He took over and decided to be emperor, and guess who stopped him? He tried to march way up there into, was it into Germany he tried to go into? It was Russia. I think he was defeated by Scipio or something like that. He tried to march up there into Russia. So I could be wrong on the general who stopped him. I think Scipio stopped Hannibal. But nonetheless, but you see what I'm saying? All these wars of conquest that they kept going and kept going and kept going was depleting them. Was completing their seed, because the women didn't fight in these wars. Men did. They killed and killed and killed, and their birth rate was not matching their mortality rate. It wasn't. And now in Russia, they're telling people, please have children. See what's happening in France. What's happening in France today? If you don't know, France is a socialist country. Of course, most of you know that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult your intelligence. France is a socialist country, correct? So when you go to France, you can go over there and get free education, free healthcare, yada, yada. That's why so many people are coming over there to France. But also what France did was they also invaded Africans. But now the Africans have invaded France and England and the Americas. Also, the Mexicans are pouring into the Americas. You have the Indians coming into America. Also, what did the British do? The British invaded India. And a lot of India was Britain-owned until they took it back. See, when you fight wars on so many fronts, eventually your resources are going to get depleted. But the most valuable resource that they didn't realize was their bloodline. It wasn't just men dying, it was your bloodline dying. And that's what's happening to them. They're trying to get people to have children. They can't do it because they can't keep up with the mortality rate. All of those men have died, or they're dying off. And now these people are having children, especially the so-called elite, but they're only having 1 or 2. Well, while you're having 1 or 2, the poor people are having 5 and 6. That's why the black people are no longer minorities. We're the majority. And you keep throwing us in jail and feeding us, letting us lift weights and keeping us healthy and not letting us pretty much die because of the streets or diseases or whatever else would naturally kill us. We're just in there. And you just keep putting us in there. And it's a standing army of soldiers with one thought in mind: the hatred that we have of the people who put us in here. What do you think is going to happen when those people get out? And don't say that they won't, because we know that's not true. The barrel is going to break. And when it does, they're going to be looking for you, who invaded all of our countries, killed all of our ancestors. You killed 6,000 people since Obama's been in office. He shot one of his friends, the senator. White people, do you know what you're doing? You're dying faster than you're living. And your atomic bomb is not going to help you, because when you go push the button, you think you're just going to kill off a bunch of colored people. But your people are mixed in with us now. Your white women love rappers. They're getting pregnant by them all the time. You're in trouble. And it's all because the wars that you started long ago, and you just didn't listen. You went into the Arab countries and you invaded them. You have enemies on every single corner of the earth. You went to Australia and you invaded that too and killed off the Aborigines. And claimed Australia is yours by conquest. None of it's yours. None of it. And you can't run back to England. Now, I know you think you're just going to kill off a bunch of people because you guys have the largest stockpile of weapons, and we all saw that when Michael Brown died. And I'm sorry this is so long, but you know what? I'm going to cut it right here, and I'm going to finish it later. It's your boy Tone 202.